Welcome back to This is VANCOLOUR. You may recall over the past holiday season, a notable drug policy reform advocate who runs the medicinal mushroom dispensary across its 3 locations in Vancouver sent 1 gram of psilocybin mushroom to every single member of the Legislative Assembly in BC, including Premier David Eby, to demonstrate the health benefits of magic mushrooms. Although I wouldn't be surprised if a few of those MLAs were well aware of the benefits of shrooms. But what are those benefits? That drug policy reform advocate is here to be our golden teacher. He is, of course, Dana Larsen. Dana, hello. Thanks so much for being here today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Golden teacher. I love that.
Well, let's talk about golden teacher and some other strains. When we think about magic mushrooms or psilocybin, give me the rundown. Where does it come from? Is it native to British Columbia? What's the history behind magic mushrooms?
Yeah, these mushrooms are actually found all over the world on every continent, but there is a number of varieties that are local to British Columbia and to North America in general as well. And there's a lot of different strains, but they're all similar and they have the same set of active molecules. But like cannabis, there's different ratios of different chemicals that can produce varying effects, right? But they're all sort of in the same kind of range. And you said golden teacher, and that's one of the strains that we sell, probably the most famous mushroom strain there is.
Okay.
And the one that we recommend to anybody who comes in and hasn't tried mushrooms before and wants a first time kind of experience, that's usually the one we recommend to them. It's kind of a mid-potency, good for therapeutic use, kind of user-friendly. Some of the strains can be quite powerful and can be overwhelming if you're not used to the effects, but golden teacher is a great place to start.
So let's talk about some of the effects. When you consume psilocybin, magic mushrooms, whether it's golden teacher or another strain, what kind of effects can you expect both from the high itself and then also some of these supposed health benefits?
Yeah, well, after you take mushrooms, and normally you'd be taking about 1 to 3 grams of dried mushrooms for a psychedelic kind of an effect, and about 10% of that for a microdose effect. We can talk about that after. But for the psychedelic effect, it takes about 20 minutes to half an hour to come on, and will last about 4 to 5 hours, with about 8 hours in total after you've come down a bit. And the effects range from euphoria, insights, epiphanies, visual hallucinations sometimes. Not so much you see things that aren't there, but there'll be like a glow around things, or the wall will seem like it's breathing, or you might see a pattern of colors and light sort of overlaying things like that. But you're not going to see like someone who isn't there, or like dragons or things like that. It's more those kind of experiences. And people often find this is very good for dealing with issues like PTSD, trauma, depression, anxiety, those kind of emotional disorders. And we're also finding people who use mushrooms and find it helps them with chronic pain and physical issues like that, which is kind of an unexpected angle to it as well. So
physical and mental therapeutic effects.
People generally are seeking a mental effect, right? And I'm just sort of discovering from our clients that many people are also finding physical benefits as well from pain and those kind of issues. But generally you're looking for a mental effect, a sort of reduction in anxiety and depression and those kind of things, like a mood enhancer, which doesn't just last during the experience, but can last for months or sometimes permanently afterwards. You don't need to keep taking them to maintain the effects.
Interesting. What about some of the drawbacks? Who is mushrooms not for? Because I feel like every drug, whether it's caffeine or alcohol, there's always some negative effects as well, right?
Yeah, well, sure. And while mushrooms can be good for depression, if you're in a depressive state and you take a bunch of mushrooms by yourself, probably not a good idea, right? Because it can enhance the emotions that you're having.
Yeah.
And especially for your first times, you want to have somebody there with you who has experience and kind of guide you on that and maybe give you a reassuring touch or the word at the time, because you can spiral into a negative place under a large mushroom dose if you're not sort of prepared for the experience, right? So, and people with mental illness or certain types of issues that there's certain chemical issues. If you have schizophrenia or things like that, we don't recommend taking mushrooms. And in fact, for all the products we sell, we have a user guide that we give people, which has warnings and explanations on how to use it properly and how not to use it. You also, although mushrooms are quite safe, and to like the lethal dose is like several kilos of mushrooms. So like cannabis, it's pretty much impossible to kill yourself on a large mushroom dose, but it can be uncomfortable at a large dose.
You can have a bad time.
You can have a bad time. And it can be, it's like eating a lot of cannabis also can be uncomfortable and have a bad time if you're not ready for it, right? So, but if you know the right dose and you're entering it into the right state, and you also don't want to mix it with certain other substances as well. There's some other drugs you want to be careful with mixing it with, but really it's quite safe. And as long as you take those simple precautions, you're going to have a positive experience.
Now, what exactly is microdosing? Because I feel like, especially among young professionals, even some older professionals, microdosing, quote unquote, seems to be all the rage.
It's really wonderful, and microdosing, you're basically taking around 10 to 20% of like what a psychoactive dose would be. So if normally you would take like 1 to 3 grams of mushrooms, for a microdose, you might take around 100, 150 milligrams of dried mushrooms. And with that kind of an effect, either it's sub-threshold, so you don't get any kind of psychedelic feeling at all, but you'll have a good day. And if you're someone who maybe is stressed or anxious, you'll find that's greatly reduced. And, maybe somebody will say something that would normally trigger somebody and they'd be thinking about it all day long. And if they're on a microdose, they're like, that guy's just having a bad day. It's okay, And I also find sometimes the insights you gain through a macrodose, through a psychedelic dose, experiences like we're all connected and everything, I can be forgiving. And those things will kind of fade over time maybe. But the microdose can kind of remind you of those insights, but in a more way you can integrate into your day and you can continue to work and drive and do stuff. But you're also like, oh yeah, I don't have to worry about that. Or, oh yeah, everybody's connected and we're all sort of one thing.
So a microdose isn't intoxicating. You can still drive.
You can take, if you take a post-threshold dose, like a bit above threshold, then you get a little twinkle on things maybe, but it's still very mild, but it's not just a matter of either nothing or total psychedelic effect. There's a lot of range. We also do what we call...
Are you microdosing right now?
I'm not today, no, but I do microdose pretty regularly.
Curious, yeah.
I was microdosing mushrooms for quite a while, but I also find for a lot of people, you don't have to keep doing it forever, right? That you take the microdoses for a while and you only want to do it 2 or 3 times a week. If you take every day, the effect is greatly diminished. You need to give your body a couple, so it's naturally regulating. You can't just take mushrooms every day, no matter how much you like it, the effects won't work. You need to take a 2 or 3 day break in between. But I find for a lot of people, like when you take antidepressants, you got to keep taking them regularly.
Right.
You can't take breaks. You can't be flexible. With microdosing, you can be flexible. And for a lot of people, they find after a few months or a certain amount of time, they don't need to microdose anymore. The effects have become permanent. Or they might only do it once, maybe seasonally they have issues, or there's certain things, they might just do it once in a while, but you don't need to keep doing it all the time to get those kind of positive effects.
Fascinating. We have about a minute left, so I'm really curious. You have these storefronts that are out in the public. You have a business license as well to operate, and yet mushrooms, magic mushrooms, psilocybin, still very much illegal, not even covered by decriminalization. So how are you able to operate these storefronts? How does that work?
Well, it's very similar to how it was with cannabis dispensaries, where there is a lot of patients that have legal access to these things. I think the Vancouver police generally, although they did raid us in quite a big way on November 1st last year, but generally they've made it a sensible decision not to prioritize these kind of things. And even in our raid, we reopened the next day. They laid no charges. Prosecutors don't want to touch this because we probably win in court with a lot of these issues. So I think there's that lack there. In Toronto, the police do enforce raids, but they're not any more successful than shutting dispensaries down, and they're spending a lot of money going after places. It doesn't really work. Our courts are not willing to put people in jail for providing medicinal mushrooms to people, and we've got some very strong legal arguments. So I think that's why the police generally leave us alone.
Dana, well, this was a pleasure to chat with you. Thanks so much for illuminating me on mushrooms, being my golden teacher today. I appreciate your time and good luck with the dispensaries.
Hey, thank you very much.
Folks, he's the mushroom man, drug policy reform advocate, Dana Larsen. Now, I don't know what the CRTC rules say about this, but he's got some stores in Vancouver. They're not hard to find. Now, after some business, dessert. What does JJ McCullough have to say about the pride of British Columbia, Nanaimo bars? We'll find out up next.